High vibes, everybody. I just want to get on here today and make a quick video about basically how you need to be able to accept who you are right now, like who you are in the now, and not keep holding on to the attachments of your past self and the things that you may have done. And basically, there are different versions of ourselves. As we go along our path and our journey, we're always going to constantly be changing and evolving, and and growing, in spirit, mind, and body. The full Trinity, and actually growing in all those areas. So as we grow, we're actually changing. We're becoming a different person as we do this. And so wherever you are right now, that's where you're supposed to be. That's what you're supposed to be, actually vibing with, because you don't want to have those attachments to, your past self. You want to be able to, live in the now for right now, and not have to, worry about what was going on before, about who you were before and the things that you did before, because all that stuff now you're going to learn from those. You're going to get different experiences from those, and that should be incorporated into who you are now, having learned those lessons and actually applying those lessons in everything that you do, and applying those lessons in everything, like spirit, mind, and body, in your spiritual practices, in your mental practice, in your physical practices. Everything that you're doing, you should be embodying and really empowering and really getting into the flow of who you are right now, because you may have done stuff in the past. You may have done things in the past that, have affected where you are right now, but none of that stuff should be having an effect on what you're doing right now. You've learned those lessons. You went through those experiences. Now that you've been through those experiences, you have to be able to take those experiences and to grow as the person you are right now. And then you can be thinking about the person you want to become, because you want to be able to set those goals and those practices that you want to instill within yourself in order to become the person you want to become. But at the same time, you need to be thinking about, okay, how can I do these things? How can I achieve that right now? So you have to know where you're at mentally, where you're at spiritually, spiritually, mentally, and physically. So you want to, go through and do your practices, do your meditations, do your spirit talks, do all that, and you want to make sure you're going through and you're doing those ego checks, and you're actually, really observing your mind to the point where, that you're not your mind, and you're able to, under, enter, and overstand that. And, that's going to take some time. That's going to take, that consistency of actually putting in that work, day to day, and, not even from day to day, moment to moment, and applying those in every single moment that you have. And that's going to be, and that's all a part of who you actually are right now. You might be like, oh, I want to go off and, hang out with my friends, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. And because, it was stuff that, used to help you out, used to do this. But if it's not actually helping you for where you are right now, it's not actually doing stuff for, the person you are now, if it's not in line with that, then, you need to go ahead and let those things go. I made the video about, letting go of those attachments. That's an attachment that you have. You want to make sure that you, are not having those particular attachments, because if you're still holding on to who you were before, that's going to stop you from being able to grow. You're not going to be able to grow as much as you could if you let that attachment grow. Now, I'm not saying that you won't be able to grow, but you won't be able to grow like you should, because, you got to think of it in the terms of energy. If you have that attachment of your past self, you're putting a lot of energy into that. So how can you get new energy and new information if you're actually still holding on to that? So you want to make sure that you're, seeing, how you're going to be able to, get to that place that you want to get to, wherever that place may be, because everybody wants to get to different things. Everybody has different goals and different desires or whatever that they have. But if when you realize what you're trying to do or what you want to do, you got to actually put in those steps and take the action in order to do that. And one of the processes of actually doing that is letting go of that attachment to your past self, because you may have been higher in vibes before, you may have been lower in vibes before, so you're going to react to things differently. The action and reaction is going to be different now than it was before. So you have to not be playing off of the rules of before, because basically, like, the rule book has been updated now that you've changed. Things are now different around you, because I've talked about how your perception will change your reality. So now if your perception has changed and your reality is different, then it's not the same rules, same standards that you had before. So you have to be able to, adapt and grow with it. That's with, like, if you're playing sports, they make adjustments to the rules in the game. And then, the players have to react to that in order and to change to be able to play that particular game, according to the rules right then. So if you think about it in that way, so when you've changed your perspective and you changed, how you act and everything, now the rules have changed as well. The game has changed. So you have to be able to adapt to play the game as to where it is now, and to be constantly be able to adapt to it because of the constant change and the constant growth that you're going to have, because you're going to keep going on this path. You're going to keep changing and growing, and you're going to keep, letting go of certain things and, adding in other things, and incorporating all that into the person that you are in the present moment. And you want to make sure that you're actually staying consistent with that, because there's going to be those times where you start to, think about where you were before. And it's not a bad thing to think about where you were before, but you can't, put that extra time and energy into those thoughts and into that, particular time, because that's not where you're at right now. You might want to go back and see, what type of lesson you learned, and see if you're still applying, what you actually learned from it. That's one aspect of it, that will actually help you, is if you do go back and you're looking at where you were before, things that helped you and what you actually learned from it, and then see, what's going on right now. Are there similar things going on, and are you actually applying the previous lessons that you've learned? Because it's like in school, they build off of things. You start in elementary and they teach you basic math and how to read and write, and then you start getting up, and now you're learning grammar, you're learning equations, and now you're learning different things. And it just keeps going on as you get higher, but they're building off of those previous steps. You have to know those previous steps in order to go to the next steps. So like when you're in high school or you're in college, it's not like you were in elementary school. Now you might use some of the things that you learned during that time, but that's not where you are now. You're going to, apply it differently, because you have that different perspective and that different, action, and you have that different, vibration about you, so that it's going to be different. But you still are applying those lessons, but you can't, hold on to like, oh, it was so good. There's a lot of people that get caught up, like the popular kids in high school, and, the jocks, the quarterback of the football team, or whatever, sport it was in your school. You got that person who, after they graduate, later on, they look at their life and they're like, man, things aren't like how they were supposed to be. I was doing all this, and then they're caught up into that past self of themselves. They're attached to that. So now they can't actually, get out of whatever situation they're in the now, because they're holding on to that. And if you keep holding on to those things in the past, you're not going to be able to grow and move forward in your life. You're not going to be able to do the things that you want, need to do. So you got to make sure that you're actually, applying, letting go of that past self. And that's going to be, different for everybody, and that goes into your practices that you should be doing or can be doing or whatever. You want to make sure that you're actually staying consistent with those if you want to see those results. You want to make sure you're doing the different meditations in order to make sure that you're, getting rid of those attachments, and you're actually, growing with spirit, growing with that love, and being able to spread that love out. Because if you don't actually, take those steps to do it, then it won't happen. Because you can sit there and observe it and talk about it all the time and be like, okay, now you can see that you actually understand it, and you may understand it, but you're not actually putting into action. And in order to be able to understand these different situations, you have to be able to put into action. You have to be able to put in the work on all three levels, spiritually, mentally, and physically, in order to be able to actually, grow and learn from that situation. Because, I'm going to talk about it again, like going back to, in school, if you didn't actually put into action, to actually learn those things and do everything you were supposed to do. Let's say in 5th grade, when you get to 6th and 7th grade, if you didn't do that, that's going to be harder for you, because you didn't actually learn the lessons. You didn't actually do what you were supposed to do. You're not actually putting in and applying those lessons. So how do you expect to, be able to do the next level things if you're not actually putting in that work? But that's pretty much all I wanted to get into today. Just, really, go within to see, and evaluate where you are right now, and, who you are in the present moment, so that you can then, see, okay, where do you want to go? What have you learned? How are those lessons, working for you? How are you able to use those lessons in order to keep growing and to keep spreading out that love, and to keep, changing your perspective to the point where, now you are, thinking in those higher vibrations, you're thinking in those higher perspectives. So really making sure that you evaluate that, and then not only just evaluate it, take the action. Don't spend all this time, evaluating and not actually putting in the actions, because then you're going to start getting caught up in your mind. And I made that video about getting caught up in your mind and what can happen if you do get caught up in your mind. So, just take note of that as you're doing everything you're doing, and keep growing and keep, spreading out that love out here. But that's all I wanted to say. So peace in and out, my full love, my highest vibrations, and my gratitude.